A couple of months ago, I was surprised by one of the most technical and difficult and painful, honestly, hikes I've ever done in search of something Agave Utahensis related. And I think I might have found it. I think I might have found an Agave Utahensis pictograph, that is rock art, indigenous ancient rock art that's been painted onto a rock wall. And I think it represents Agave Utahensis. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, this potential Agave Utahensis rock art and the journey it took me to find it. So back in the summer, I was out in the desert here near Red Rock Canyon, just outside of Las Vegas, just to the west of Las Vegas, looking for an archaeological site that I'd found some information about on the internet. I'd seen that there was probably some rock art there. There was probably some roasting pits, agave roasting pits. And so from that, I could assume that there was some agave stands nearby. And I also knew that there was a historic water source that was used at this site. And access to the site is actually kind of tricky. It used to be you could kind of take a four-wheel drive vehicle and drive off-road for a couple of miles and get to the site pretty easily. But development has meant that there are now houses and private property and all that kind of stuff in the way of that path. So now to get there, it's actually kind of a long and a little bit of a technical hike, at least more technical than I was expecting on this particular day. And I'd done my research. I looked at Google Earth and on my Garmin, and I'd planned a route, and I knew the elevation change. So I knew that it was going to be a technical hike. I didn't really know exactly how technical or how much longer than I expected it to be was going to be, but it ended up being quite a bit more of both. But when I eventually did find the site, it was super cool. It was actually, I found the area where it should have been, walked around a bunch, didn't see any rock art, found the roasting pit and some agave. There was a bunch of agave along the way too, so I knew that there was going to be agave there. But I didn't find, at least at first, the rock art, and I was kind of doing one last sort of sweep of the area before I had to begin the hike that I didn't realize how treacherous and difficult it was going to be on the way in. I had to redo that. So I was doing one last loop around the site looking for the rock art that I had found, like I said, on the internet was going to be there. What I found at first were petroglyphs. That is rock art that's been like dug, pecked, or sort of scratched into the wall, into the desert varnish on a rock. Rocks here in the desert, after they're there for a very long time, they develop what's called a desert varnish, which is a dark covering, and then rock art can be created by scratching back that desert varnish. I've actually posted some reels about that on Instagram, right? And then so in this particular site, I'd read reports that there were multicolor, multichromatic pictographs, that is drawings, paintings on rock in a bunch of different colors. So super excited to see that. So I found the petroglyphs first. I kept walking, basically just looking on one wall, and then came across this really amazing set of panels of multicolored, multichromatic pictographs, painted rock art, painted onto the rock face. And so I spent some time looking at these. I actually took a little selfie video for Instagram and posted it from there. I was very tired when I took that. I was very tired this entire time. And again, this is at the end of the turnaround point of the hike that I didn't expect was going to be quite so difficult. And so I wasn't like 100% mentally with it. So I just sort of took as many pictures and videos as I could think to take and try to cover as much of the wall as possible so that I could look at it later at home. And then I started my hike back, right? And so my hike back, again, very much more treacherous and technical. Basically, it's like a huge sandstone canyon that you've kind of got to boulder your way through. And there's a bunch of standing water. And so that's really cool, but also kind of tricky. And then wayfinding in there is pretty difficult. Well, anyway, and so I get home, I start looking at the photographs first. I took photos and videos while I was out there, but I'm going through the photos first, and I find a photo of what to me looks like an Agave Utahensis rosette. And again, we know that Agave Utahensis was very important to indigenous residents of the area. We know that that particular site had been used for agave roasting. I saw roasting pits there. I saw Agave Utahensis in that vicinity. And so we know that it was important to the folks who were using this site. But yeah, so I was like, wow, this looks like it could be Agave Utahensis. So I went eventually to the UNLV special collections. Like it's a section of their library where they have all their old and special books and documents and stuff. And I found some reports done by UNLV archaeologists for the BLM, cultural resource reports essentially, that were done on that particular site. And on these forms, they have checkboxes of the different kinds of, it says like human form or geometric form or spirals or dots, right? There's like a checklist of different types of rock art. But in the section where it said plant forms, there was no check. The researchers who had created this report, who had done this report for the BLM, did not report finding any plant shapes. So to me, it looks like Agave Utahensis. Some researchers looking at it several decades ago did not necessarily see Agave Utahensis in it. And I've talked to some experts about archaeological sites, including rock art in the desert Southwest, and most agree that plant imagery does happen. It is fairly common. A lot of times you see corn stalks and things like that. I don't know that I've ever heard of any other examples of specifically agave or Agave Utahensis based rock art, and certainly this is the only thing that I've ever seen, but I've only ever seen a limited amount of rock art around here. So I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. Let me know. Do you think I found Agave Utahensis rock art? Is this a pictograph, a painting on rock by indigenous folks who lived in the area hundreds, maybe even thousands of years ago that depicts Agave Utahensis?